Hello, my name's Al Bane, and I'm here to talk to you about the Cobra Class 18 sewing machine from the Leather Machine Company in Southern California. The Cobra Class 18 is a flatbed sewing machine, which is to say that it has a flat table and it's mostly used for garments and upholstery. Okay, the high intensity LED light provides high intensity lighting on the workpiece, but doesn't create any heat. There's no danger of burning the operator or the workpiece. A really interesting feature with the open toe presser foot. That little gap in front of it allows you to be able to see where the needle is placed, and the Leather Machine Company came up with that first. The presser foot system is raised and lowered by the lock system that is hand operated, and also can be lowered and raised by the knee lift. To lock it in the up position using your knee, you push with your knee and then flip up the lever with your hand. The digital servo motor drives this weighted speed reducer, which in turn adds torque to the overall system. Meaning to say that the control of the servo motor allows you to sew in a very slow speed, yet have enough pressure to push the needle through even the thickest leathers. The Class 18 comes with a built-in thread tree. It holds two cones, which one feeds the needle side of the machine and the other feeds the built-in bobbin winder. The bobbin winder is table mounted and driven off of the drive belt. So it will automatically load bobbins, and then once the bobbin is full, it will stop by bouncing off the belt and relieving the pressure on the axle. The Class 18 comes with a built-in parts drawer, which leaves all your necessary essentials and accessories within easy reach. An easy-to-reach reverse lever. This knob controls the stitch length. By turning it to a larger number, it will make the stitches longer, and by turning it to a smaller number, it'll make them shorter. Depending on your textiles, you may want a longer or a shorter stitch. The table on the Class 18 sewing machine is fully adjustable, meaning to say that by loosening these bolts on both legs, you can raise the table or lower the table so that it becomes more comfortable for your operating position. The Cobra Class 18 has a swivel caster, which makes it easy to push it around the shop, but it also has a feature of a locking caster. So by pushing down on this lever, it locks it into place where it no longer rolls or rotates. So to unlock it, it's exactly the reverse. You would clip underneath and raise that lever, lock it, push down. Really simple, easy to use feature. The Cobra Class 18 sewing machine and its built-in thread tree use industrial cones to supply the thread to the system. To thread the tree, we take a cone and we stick it over the post and allow the thread to come off the top of the cone and through the little grommet and out toward the machine. This tree will swing depending on the nature of the goods you're moving through the machine. It may be optimal in a different angle, so you can pivot it around. For threading the bobbin winder, those that are unfamiliar, there are a couple components that we'd like to talk about. This is a thread guide. Okay, we're going to go through it twice. This is a simple tension disc with a thread tension device and a winding axle, along with a locking and release lever. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is feed the thread through the initial thread guide, go between the tension discs, and come out through that original thread guide. Careful not to twist the threads in here. Now, to put the thread onto the bobbin, what I do is I grip the tip of the thread and pinch it onto the rim of the bobbin itself. I'm going to wind a few revolutions around and grip the thread with the tension of the new wind. That keeps it from falling off. You have to maintain some tension on this thread, and I'm going to slide it onto the spindle and then take out the slack, keeping a little bit of tension, and set the lock. Then I'm going to come over and pull the slack out of the system and keep this little thread tight here and pull it all the way back to the cone. Now the axle is running this little wheel and it's pushing up against this belt, and it will fill a bobbin automatically until it's full. Typically you would fill a bobbin while you're sewing, so you have to kind of have one bobbin running in the machine and one bobbin filling at all times. But for demonstration purposes, we're going to run it without any sewing. So doing that, I'm going to remove the thread out of the needle so that we don't bird's nest our bobbin. I'm just going to set the bobbin winder up by taking all the tension out and locking the lock in, forcing this wheel up against the pulley's belt. Okay? I'm going to step on the machine and let it run. And the bobbin should be winding evenly, and it'll go back and forth and back and forth. This lever popping open indicates that the bobbin is full. You can, by adjusting this screw here, add more thread or less thread to your bobbin. Okay, threading the needle side of the Cobra Class 18. First, you're going to put your cone of thread on the stand and run the thread from the top of the cone and out through the little grommet toward the operator. This little thread guide provides pre-tension to the thread prior to it reaching the needle. So, depending on whether you need more or less, you would either wind around, which is providing a lot of pre-tension, or you can just simply go straight up and over, depending on the requirements of your textiles. So you have two choices, around or straight. There's a second thread guide that provides pre-tension. This one here has 3 little holes in it, and just like the initial one, you can either go straight through it or wrap around depending on how much pre-tension you think you need for your textiles. So in and around provides more tension, while going straight through provides less. Now here's where it gets important. This system here is the thread tension device. There is a knob, a spring, and 2 discs. What you want to do is pass a thread in a counterclockwise direction through the 2 discs and make sure that it gets all the way down to the axle, around behind the pin and over the top and down around the outside. Now the thread's lined up so that it can go between these 2 discs, and as it comes around to the front side, the take-up spring now comes into contact with the thread. Go through there, go through this thread guide here. There's a little gap in the side, you can just pull it through. Up to the take-up lever. Now this little thread guide here has a little felt pad in it, so what you can do here is go behind the felt pad. It's designed to catch lint prior to it getting to the needle, but you don't have to worry too much about that with the new modern threads. Little thread guide right here on the side at the top of the needle, and there's an opening in the back corner right here where this pencil is pointing. You take the thread and just guide it going from the back and toward the front and get it going through as smooth as possible. Now thread the needle from the operator's left to the operator's right, and then through the center presser foot. For demonstration purposes, this is what it looks like when the operator is changing the bobbin. He's going to take his left hand, reach under the table, and grab hold of the bobbin case. Removes it out from underneath the machine. Okay, this is what the bobbin case and the bobbin combination look like together. So replacing it is exactly the opposite order. He's going to reach his hand under the table and replace it back into the machine. This is for demonstration purposes so you can see what it looks like when you do it yourself. The next shot in this series will be with the machine in a different configuration for the purpose of being able to get photography. This is the undercarriage of the Cobra Class 18. What we've done here is we've tipped it back so into the mechanic's working position so that we can demonstrate installation and removal of the bobbin and the bobbin case. For photographic reasons, we can't get a shot from underneath, so we're looking at it from here. You would normally not do this for bobbin change operations. The bobbin case is located right here, and there's a little lever here. Okay, so what you do is you flip it up and you grab hold of it between your thumb and your index finger and grab the whole thing out. Putting it back is exactly the opposite. Grab the little lever and pull it out. You would normally be doing this with your hand under the machine and doing it basically with your eyes closed. To load the bobbin is done like this. This is a fresh bobbin. What we want to do is hold it so that it's paying out in a clockwise direction. Holding the bobbin case with the thread groove on the top, we're going to put the bobbin in there. Again, making sure it's paying out in a clockwise direction. Put the thread through the groove and underneath the spring. Grip it with the little lever, making sure that the thread is outside of the lever, and then put it back and make sure it deploys a little bit of thread. Now this bobbin is ready to feed. This component here, which is located under the normal work platform, is called the safety clutch. In its normal setup situation, you can see a little ball bearing sticking out through that little window. If you don't see that, what has happened is the clutch has disengaged. And that's meaning to say that the drive pulley system has disengaged at this point, and it will no longer spin the hook and the bobbin. Typically, the clutch will disengage if you've had a major catastrophic failure in the needle, or you've bird nested a bunch of thread and wrapped it around the hook and bobbin, and the stress, which would normally break some of the components in the machine, would disengage this safety clutch. So if that has happened, if you've experienced a catastrophic failure in the needle or had a major bird's nest, then you go to rethread the machine and it's not sewing for one reason or another, it's very likely that the safety clutch has disengaged. When you tip up the machine and look and you don't see that bearing, inevitably you need to reset the clutch. The resetting procedure is done by depressing this silver button, which is located in the middle of the work platform. You're going to push it down and pull the hand wheel until the whole system clicks. When you look at the clutch again, you're going to see that ball bearing has made it back into its place and the clutch is now reset. Be careful not to repeat the mistake that caused the catastrophe in the first place, and you should be okay. The Cobra Class 18 sewing machine comes with a wick oiling system. What that means is that there's little wicks like you would find in an oil lamp traveling around that bring oil to some of the critical oiling points, but not all of them. This little reservoir has a red line close to the top, and it should be maintained full with oil. You fill that point through here. Okay, put a bunch of oil, probably about 3 ounces, will fill the reservoir. Okay. Then you're going to notice that there's a through fitting and a little hole right here, and about 4 or 5 other ones just like it. 1, 2, there's one right here, 3, 4, and 5, and then this little shaft right here, and you probably want to put a little drop of oil on the hook where it's rotating. Most of these have little red oiling holes that are going through the casting from the top down, while You could put a lot of oil in there. I don't trust them. I like to get my oil can right into the fitting and not have a bunch of oil dripping all over the oil pan below. Lubricating the upper part of the machine is again through these little red oil marks. Okay. There's a couple plastic ones here. These will oil also some of the vital components. Find the little red dots, put a small drop of oil in each one, and keep your machine running smooth. The bobbin winder has a little oil point here. It's not marked in red. Okay, so we're going to talk about tipping the machine back into the mechanic's position. There's a little kickstand right here, and this little post is what the machine is going to lay against when you tip the machine back. So remember that that's there. The typical clutch motor sewing machine would normally just push it back, but because this machine is running on a speed reducer, it no longer has that same operation. So what we have to do is relate to this belt and to the position that it has down here on this speed reducer. So what we do is we reach over here and grab the head and tip it back onto its operator's right side. Reach under the table and simply pull the belt off that pulley. And then lower the head back into its original place. Tipping it back is simply a matter of pushing it toward the backside and resting it on the kickstand. This is now exposing the bottom of the undercarriage. Putting the belt back is a very simple matter of setting the machine back on its original position, tipping the head backwards, and reaching under and putting the belt back on the pulley. And then setting the machine back into its cradle. Changing the needle. The changing of the needle is a very simple operation. What we want to focus on is this particular set screw right here. There's two, a smaller and a larger. It's the larger of the two. Basically put your flathead screwdriver in there and turn the screw about a quarter revolution in the counterclockwise direction. Pull the old needle straight out of the needle holder. Grab a fresh 135 by 16 or 17, push it back up into the holder. Make sure that it goes all the way to the top and that the chafe is on the right, thread groove on the left. Put your screwdriver back in that screw and turn that thing so it's just past snug. Remember to thread the needle from the operator's left to the operator's right, and most importantly through the center of the presser foot. To cycle up the bobbin thread is very simple. After you've loaded the bobbin into the bobbin holder in the bobbin case, you simply cycle the machine a full revolution. I recommend using a tool to go underneath the presser foot, load the presser foot, and bring the bobbin thread to the back side, out and back toward 1 o'clock. Loading the textiles into the Class 18 is a simple function of sticking the leather or your workpiece underneath the presser foot and either lowering the presser foot by the hand or by releasing the knee lift and lowering the presser feet there. Starting sewing, it's critical to keep the needle thread going through the inner presser foot and have the presser feet down in contact with the workpiece. You want to hold the thread for at least 3 stitches at the very beginning so that it establishes the lock, and then just go about your workday. Removing the textiles is pretty typical. What we want to do is make sure that the needle has gone past the top dead center. So understanding the needle is doing the piston action, it's going all the way down and then going all the way up. The hand wheel turns in the top toward the operator direction. So the top of the hand wheel is turning toward me. I want to make sure that the needle goes all the way to the top and then starts its descent. Now the bobbin, the hook, and the needle thread are disengaged. I'm going to lock open my workpiece and pull it out to the back. I'm going to reach over and clip off my threads. The workpiece is now removed. Typical mistake would be to not raise the needle past the top dead center, have the hook and needle thread still engaged, and having the textiles stuck in the machine. We're going to reload this machine. So starting with the thread going through the presser foot, the bobbin thread going into my hand, and making sure I've got good control over the threads. Okay? I'm going to lower my presser foot either with the knee lift or by hand. Okay? I'm going to make sure that I'm holding these threads back and toward 1 o'clock and down pinched up against the table. So while I've got them tangled up around my middle finger and index finger, I'm going to press it so that the threads are down against the table. And by ensuring that the needle thread is going through the inner presser foot, I'm not going to deflect or break the needle. Okay, so the first 3 stitches I want to be holding the thread, and I'm going to stitch 3 consecutive stitches in a row. 1, 2, 3. The 4th stitch itself, the 4th piercing, ensures that there are 3 stitches left behind. At this point I can release the threads. I personally like to clean up right here at this point. Okay, now we're going to tack on. Okay, so I'm going to reach over, I'm going to depress the reverse lever, and I'm going to sew those 3 stitches in reverse. Okay, now I'm going to continue sewing off to the end of my workpiece. Once I've reached the end, I want to off tack. So I've reached the last stitch. I'm going to depress the reverse lever. I'm going to stitch 3 in the reverse. Now that I've reached the end, I'm going to release the reverse lever, stitch 1 forward, go past the top dead center so that the needle is now on the downstroke, past the top dead center about 1/4 inch. I'm going to lock open my presser feet, deploy a little bit of thread with my finger, and cut it off. What we've done here is we've done an on tack and an off tack. The Cobra Class 18 sewing machine comes with a magnetic edge guide. So here it is in my hand. It's got a little handle up here, and what you do is you simply let the magnet do its job. There it is, set up about 3/8 of an inch away from the center of the needle. I'm going to start my sewing in the typical fashion by gripping and holding my thread down and back toward 1 o'clock. Okay, I'm going to load in my workpiece, descend my presser feet with my knee lift this time, and here I go. I'm going to on tack. Okay, here we go in the back tack. And I'm going to use this edge guide to help me guide a nice straight line. Okay, here, now that I've reached the end, I'm going to off tack. I'm going to use the finger drag trick to help deploy a little thread, raise my presser feet with my knee lift, and cut myself free, cleaning it up. This edge guide, being magnetic, has an endless amount of adjustability. The Cobra Class 18 sewing machine runs off of a drive belt. That drive belt turns this pulley. So here's the drive belt itself. It goes down and attaches to the speed reducer below the table. The speed reducer has another belt that's going back to the servo motor. Typically the drive belt that's driving the head itself gets a little bit loose, so you want to test it by squeezing the belt like this. Okay, about 3/4 of an inch of play is about all you want. If it's tighter than that, it will tend to make the machine run a little aggressively, and if it's too loose, the pulley will slip. So to tighten this belt, what you want to do is use a 13mm wrench on this nut right here. So you would loosen it, push down the speed reducer, and then tighten it back up. Remember, 3/4 of an inch of play in the belt. Troubleshooting won't feed the textiles through the machine. Inevitably, if you adjust the stitch length to 0, the feed dog and the walking foot system will not move the textiles, so the needle will be going up and down, and it will appear that the textiles are not moving. So adjust the stitch length to a longer stitch. If the reverse lever gets stuck in the down position due to poor maintenance, like not oiling the machine, then it could get stuck somewhere in the middle, and it would appear that the stitches aren't going anywhere. So make sure that the system is free moving. If the presser foot does not come all the way in contact with the table, that means that there's a part of the knee lift system that isn't letting the presser foot come all the way back down. So make sure that the knee lift is moving in its full range of motion. Presser foot leaving marks on the workpiece. When you're sewing vegetable tanned leather, that leather can tend to burnish or leave impressions. So what we would want to do is minimize the presser foot spring tension. Okay, that is to say that there would be less pressure holding down the leather onto the feed dog. It's located right behind this thread guide. You would stick a flat blade screwdriver in there and turn it in the counterclockwise direction to minimize the spring tension. Do not make the obvious mistake and think that these screws here have anything to do with the presser foot pressure tension. The presser foot spring tension is adjusted through this hole in the center of the head. The Cobra Class 18 sewing machine from the Leather Machine Company in Southern California.